I was listening to Lamont Jones, uh, and he was talking about uh, Arch Manning and all the hype and everything like that. And basically, Arch Manning is getting Andrew Luck hype. He's getting John Elway hype, and as Lamont was saying, like, what has he really done for people to be talking to him about him like this, right? Now he has the Manning last name. Of course, that's really the reason, right? He's a Manning and he plays quarterback, right? But as Lamont was saying, he's not even. I mean, he's there. He's Peyton Eli's nephew and Archie's grandson. Cooper was the wide receiver. He's Cooper's son, right? So it's interesting because those other guys, I don't think that the. I mean, there's nobody who's. He's never even been a starting quarterback in college, before. I think he had a few starts last year when Clint Edwards was out, but you know, uh, I don't know. It's weird. If his name was Arch, I'm trying to think of just like a random last name. If he had a last name that was anything other than Manning, if his name was Arch Myers, you know, what? There's no way that he'd be getting the same amount of hype, you know. Um, so I just think he's being set up to fail, and it's like put all this pressure on a young guy who hasn't really proven anything, and then he has to come out here on the road at Ohio State with all this pressure, and how does he perform? And if he doesn't perform well, then what happens? And is he strong enough mentally, like Lamani said, Eli was the guy who the pressure everything just rolled off of him, right? Rolled off his back. Whereas Peyton, stuff would get to him. And so we'll have to see, man. If he comes out and he plays well, then the hype train just keeps rolling. And let's say he comes out and he just absolutely just, shreds Ohio State or something like that. Let's say he comes out and he throws for, 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, right? I mean, the hype is going to be more than Andrew Luck hype. It'll be more than Trevor Lawrence hype. It'll be more, you have to go back to, it'll be different. I mean, John Elway is the all-time quarterback phenom, but yeah, if he comes out and he balls out, it's going to be something to behold, with the level that the hype gets to. But if he doesn't, right? If he doesn't play well, if he struggles, if they get blown out, and let's say he throws a couple of interceptions, and they don't play well, they get blown out, he fumbles, he just looks bad, right? Against a great Ohio State team on the road, well, then what happens? I think he'll be lucky. He'll be lucky that people don't like. One thing about people is that when they start building you up, right? They will build you up to tear you down, but it's like a lot of times it takes a while for people to admit that they were wrong about somebody, right? When it's somebody who's adamant that, oh, this guy is the one, right? As long you would have to be. I mean, you would have to flop so hard that they can't possibly keep up with. They can't save face anymore, and they just have to let it go. But when they start building you up like they're building up Arch Manning, the people will do a lot to keep them admitting that they were wrong, right? So he does have that working for him. The people who build him up are going to give him every opportunity to prove that he was worthy of their praise. But I mean, obviously, he came into college with a lot of hype, but the fact remains that he hasn't really done anything yet in college. So we'll see how he does. Another top 10 matchup is there's a couple more this week. weekend. LSU at Clemson. Um, Clemson once again. I mean LSU once again. Last year they started with. Last year they started against USC and lost that one in a pretty, big prime time matchup for a week one game, and we'll see how they do this week if they can do any better. Um, you know, Cade Klubnik coming into his senior year, man. I mean, he's as much of a Heisman candidate as anybody. And Clemson ranked number 4. That must be the highest they've been ranked in some time since probably since the days of Trevor Lawrence, or at least since it gets the Clemson thing. It's been dead now, kind of since Trevor Lawrence left. Kind of, it might have taken a couple of years for people to realize it, but it hasn't been the same as it was at the peak when they won those 2 national championships. They had Deshaun Watson and Lawrence. So that would actually be kind of cool, though, if Clemson is that good. There's really no reason that they should be. They're playing in the ACC, but I just think you got to have that. Dabo has shown he's got to have that quarterback who's generational. I don't think Cade Klubnik is a Trevor Lawrence or a Deshaun Watson, but he's a darn good quarterback, and he's a senior. And maybe this is the year that Clemson can, get back to that, that Final Four or something like that, or maybe the national championship game. And then also, a top 10 matchup, you got Notre Dame at Miami. Let's see. Miami they have a new quarterback. Notre Dame is Notre Dame. They're that's going to be pretty good. Both teams with new quarterbacks, so you never really know how that's going to go. And I think that could give Texas also an advantage over Ohio State, because Will Howard is he's moved on, But we'll see how it goes, man. It is exciting. I was kind of feeling down about football, but now that it's here, I'm excited. Can Penn State? They finally, this is Joe Klatt had them at number 1 in his top 25 during the summer. Then we'll have to see. But Paul Feinbaum said that James Franklin will find a way to mess up, man. I hope not, man. I like James Franklin. I'm rooting for him. He's a hell of a coach.